right, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders here for a little bit. Look, the Raiders made a lot of headlines when they selected tight end Brock Bowers with their first round pick out of the University of Georgia. Bowers was obviously a phenomenal do everything athlete, not just a tight end at Georgia. A lot of people had the Raiders maybe going a different direction, but it looks like Bowers is off to a great start with the Raiders now that we're in OTAs. Let's get into the report and we'll talk about it in detail and what Bowers can provide this Raiders team. On the other side, this is courtesy of Raiders Today. Following the second day of OTAs on Tuesday, Raiders offensive coordinator Luke Getsy highlighted what Bowers brings to the table, which should have Raiders fans excited for the future. He was probably the best player in the SEC for a couple of years there. So I'm going to freeze right there for anyone West Coast Raiders fans to understand the concept. If you guys aren't big into SEC football, the best player in the SEC, that is redunculously high level praise right there. So that's a great sign. Of course, Getsy told reporters, "This league is about finding as many dynamic guys as you can. He's just one of those elements that gives up an opportunity to do a bunch of different things." Look, I think what Brock Bowers will do and is doing for the Raiders, I think will add not just one extra layer to this team, but multiple layers. He'll be kind of a powerful force multiplier for this team going forward. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But first, Raiders fans, Raider Nation, in the comment section below, of all of the rookies this year outside of Brock Bowers, which one do you think will have the biggest impact early on for the Raiders? A lot of interesting guys to consider. Curious what your thoughts are. So give us the one rookie, not named Brock Bowers, that you think will have a big early impact for the Raiders this season, and put it in the comment section below. But Miles, give me your thoughts on Bowers and the impact he'll have on this Raiders team going forward.
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a big pickup, and I like that after OTAs, Luke Getsy is already back in the mindset after he's seen the flashes of a guy like Brock Bowers. He's like, all right, this is a player that can be dynamic. He can be all over the field. He really unlocks the offense. And I think that's big because as a Raiders fan, when you look at the roster of players that you have, I think that this is a team that without Brock Bowers, you're kind of like, where's our punch? Yeah, Devontae Adams, he's really good, but outside of him, Myers is okay. Gallup, I think, is going to be okay. You lose a big playmaker in Jacobs, but you bring Alexander Madison back, who can be a home run hitter at times. But you really need that one extra piece on this offense. We all know Michael Mayer was good, but he's more of like an inline blocking tight end who can make some plays at times as well. When you add Brock Bowers to an offense like this, I really think this is why the Raiders picked up a guy like Bowers, because he is the key. He's so dynamic and can fit so many places on this offense. This was the key to unlocking it. This was the one guy they needed, and he's the guy that can probably fit in the most amount of places, the more different amount of places. I butchered saying that, but you get the point that I'm trying to say. This guy can really go all over your offense. He can play the slot. He can play at the tight end. He can play out of the backfield. He can do so many different things. He is the key to this offense working, and I really think they are now starting to see it. I'm really excited to see what he brings this season because I think with Brock Bowers on this Raiders team, it gives guys like Aiden O'Connell, they're really a true chance of being what they are able to be. Because without him, this offense may have looked a little bit stale, but with him, I think it's going to be something special.
I think you mentioned this too, but I think there's an important phrase that Getsy used talking about Bowers and what he's seen from Bowers and what he saw from his time in Georgia. Notice he didn't say he was the best receiver in the SEC, the best tight end in the SEC. He said he's the best football player, right? Because Bowers can line up anywhere, to your point, and do it all. He ran the football in a lot of speed sweeps. He can line up in a traditional fullback, H-back. He can be a tight end. He can be a slot receiver. He can be lined up out wide. He is the definition of just, I call it a force multiplier. You talk about unlocking your offense. I think we're talking about the same thing here in terms of he can just do so many different things where just defenses don't know how to handle them. And that leads me into the main point here, because if you look at personnel groupings, because that really matters, making sure offensively you get yourself with a good personnel grouping, a good match of receivers, tight end, running backs to execute your offense, and the defense will counter that. So the most consistently used personnel grouping in all of football is what's called 11 personnel, one running back, one tight end, three wide receivers. And that leads to why a lot of base defenses these days are two linebackers, three corners to cover those three wide receivers, and two safeties. That's usually what a base defense is 9 times out of 10 in today's NFL in terms of the most used personnel packages. But what Brock Bowers brings as a second tight end, he allows the Raiders to line up in a traditional 3 wide receiver, 11 personnel group and have that flexibility, but also run the football down the team's throat because Bowers can block really well too. And he can line up Bowers in the slot. He can put Mayer in the slot and put Bowers at tight end. Defenses aren't going to know how to match up. What are they going to do? They're going to throw out there with a bunch of corners to cover Bowers and the rest of these receivers. The Raiders will just run the football down team's throat in those light boxes. Or if they try and go heavy, bring some linebackers on the field. There's not a linebacker in the NFL that consistently cover a guy like Brock Bowers. He made SEC linebackers, the closest to the NFL, look like Little League his entire time at Georgia. Bowers is just a matchup nightmare. And I think that's why it's really important what Getsy's saying here. He's the best player. He can do so many different things for this Raiders offense going forward. And I think we talk about what was missing. And I like what you said, unlock the offense. We know Adams is great. We know they've got a lot of really solid receivers. I actually like Madison as a running back. Mayer, I think, has a lot of potential. They just need that one guy that can just completely obliterate whatever defense throws at them to allow these other players to really make more plays and operate more freely, specifically Davante Adams. And based on what we're hearing and seeing from the Raiders so far, Brock Bowers is going to be that guy.